I'm a man of honor, integrity, and promise. I pursue all righteousness. I love my family. I will not put my family in harm's way. There is nothing that will keep me from doing the right thing. I am an ambassador of hope and a man of discipline. I am a man worth following. I am a TYRO.
Welcome to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Catherine TYRO.
And for those of you who don't know who we are, I served 15 years inside the state penitentiary while Cathy served 15 years alongside me on the outside.
Now, the circumstance that seems to be the thing that would crush our family instead caused our family to grow stronger and healthier together. And the lessons we learned during those 15 years are the things and the concepts and principles that we based our program, the TYRO program, on, so that other people could also enjoy that same success in their relationships.
And what's amazing is that in spite of where we were at, we were able to figure out what it's going to take to become successful. And out of that journey, we were able to put together this program, as Cathy said, the TYRO program. And what the word TYRO means is apprentice, novice, someone learning something new, a warrior, or founding father. And this helps us all become better people for a better society.
Right, to learn to live honorably. But in order to do that, you really have to break the cycle of incarceration. And in order to be effective in doing that, you have to understand what that cycle is. So we've spent the last couple of weeks really breaking down and explaining what the cycle of incarceration is and each phase within that cycle. And so we've talked about the first 4 phases of the cycle of incarceration.
And the first one being shock. Mm-hmm. You know, what happens to a man when he first gets incarcerated, first goes to the county jail, the shock and awe, if you will. The second one was denial. You know, when you're telling yourself, I can't believe I'm here, and you start to put on all these masks and to try to convince people that you're not afraid or all these other things. And the third one is anger. You know, when you begin to start really blaming others for your circumstances. And the fourth one was grief. Mm-hmm. When you start to really become, you know, almost depression, or you don't even know if it's worth living, and you're going through sorrow because you feel helpless and you can't help your family, and you go through all types of mind battles.
Once you navigate through grief, the next phase is acceptance. And after acceptance, you come to a crossroad or a decision point to either decide to remain complacent and repeat the cycle, or decide for positive change. And from change, the first step is recognize. So today, we're really going to focus on acceptance, and we're going to focus on recognize, the first step towards healing. So we hope you stay tuned, and we'll be right back with more information.
TYRO Dads will help you to see who you really are on the inside by coming to terms with your past, present, and future. You will begin to move forward by using your time on the inside to transform yourself. We know you are not the only one serving time. Your family is too. Overcoming the issues that existed prior to and during incarceration are often more than many families can survive. TYRO Dads has a unique method of reaching and healing families based on Ron and Cathy TYRO's own personal experience with incarceration. TYRO Dads works exclusively with incarcerated fathers who have minor children. The program lasts for 10 weeks and focuses on intensive character development. You'll be taught to take responsibility for your actions, to own it. You will be prepared to overcome the obstacles of your incarceration and transition back into your home and community, both successfully and permanently. Upon successful completion of this program, you will earn the title of TYRO, which means a warrior, someone learning something new. You'll be one of the honored, a man worth following.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Catherine TYRO.
And today we're talking about breaking the cycles of incarceration. Actually, this is a continuation of the series we've been talking about. And right now we want to talk about acceptance. When you come to a place in your walk, in your journey, when you already went through shock, denial, anger, grief, and now you're at a place of where you start to really understand something about where you're at, and you come to a place in your mind where I accept this reality, right? Where you're no longer in denial. You see it for what it is and its purpose in your life, because this experience that you're having has a purpose and is for a reason.
So once you get to the place of acceptance and you accept that, wow, I am in this position and I can't change it, and so I'm here, you come to a decision point. Because at that decision point, you have to decide, well, am I just going to be complacent and ride out this journey to just say, okay, I'm here, let me just continue to just walk it off and then walk it out, I guess, and then walk outside and go back.
And walking it out, what does that look like? That looks like there's no evolution in your journey. You're like a stagnant water that is producing mosquitoes. And stagnant water that produces mosquitoes, and everybody knows what a mosquito is, right? It's a blood-sucking insect. And so if you're complacent in a place of penitentiary, whether it's physical or mental, you have to be, you're not contributing to society anymore.
Right.
You're just extracting. You're in the way. And we don't want to be in that place of complacency.
So when you get to that place of acceptance and then you decide to just remain complacent, that you're not going to make changes to your lifestyle, then you're just kind of waiting until you get out. You're going to repeat that cycle, which means you're going to get out, you're going to do something again that's going to land you back in jail, back in prison, and then go back again from the shock to the denial, to the anger, to the grief, to the acceptance, and you're going to continue round and round in this recidivism cycle and the recurring cycle. So we want to break that cycle. So we already know what the first phases are, which are natural phases that you have to go through. But now this decision point, after acceptance, determines whether or not you're going to go home, be productive, have your dreams come true, have a solid, healthy, thriving family, or you're going to fail.
And when we talk about fail, you become a victim of your own devices. You become a victim of something that you created because you have a choice. And it's at this moment in your journey that you have to make that conscious decision. And signs and symbols are for the conscious man. And so here it is right now. It's in front of you, and you have a choice whether to become better or to become bitter.
So once you get past those first phases of incarceration and you get to the point of change, from here on out, we're really going to be talking about these phases that you're going to go through to really, really become successful. And this is what the TYRO program does. So it starts first with recognize, and then rebuild, then renew, then reinvent, and finally reinvest.
What does recognize look like? This is pivotal in your journey, guys. This is going to cause you to really come to terms why you are there, or what it took, or how you got there. You know, because the saying that we say in the TYRO program, and the men really come to a place of this phrase, your best thinking got you right where you're at.
Well, Ron, share a little bit. How did you get to the place of recognizing? Because I know when you talk about the choice, now you're choosing to move forward. And I mean, I remember the switch in you from the anger, then the acceptance, and then really beginning to recognize, wow, I'm here. Even though I'm in prison for something I didn't do, I'm here because of choices I made.
You know, and that was a wake-up call for me. I met this guy in prison, and now a lot of you have met him, and some of you have ran from him, and some of you have embraced him. And this guy I met, his name is Silence. And it was in this meeting in a cell. I was by myself, and I really got to really understand what it meant to be silent, to hear myself think for the first time. The first thing you do when you go home from work, guys, when you turn the TV on, the first thing people do when they get in a car, they turn the radio on, because silence doesn't exist out here. You got to have noise around you, all these distractions. But in the jail cell, there is no, when you first go to jail, you don't get that. You don't get a radio, you don't get a TV. And so you have to come to terms and to come to grip and recognize how you think. Because the difference between people who are successful and those who are not isn't their skin color, isn't what side of the tracks they were born on. It doesn't even matter how much money you are born into. The difference between people who are successful and those who are not is the way they think. And I had to come to a place of recognizing that my best thinking, even though I was innocent when I was convicted of, my best thinking got me here because I was not living an exemplary life. I was doing things that should have got me locked up way before I was incarcerated. And it's only mercy that I'm still not there, because those things that I thought I got away with, those things that I was doing, those things that led up to me coming into this place, they're realities and they're true. And I had to recognize that I had to change my thinking. And how does that work? How do you begin to change the way you think?
playing catch, basketball, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. These are all normal things on the outside, but many times are missed in a visitation setting. TYRO Dads brings the same fun experience to the inside through Family Days. As a TYRO Dad, you have the opportunity to participate in this fantastic event. Family Day is designed to allow fathers and families to engage with each other through activities designed to stimulate communication, learning, and play. Family Days will not only be a highlight for you, but for your children as well. The Ridge Project has strategically developed Family Day as an opportunity to help you connect with your child throughout your separation and help both of you develop skills to continue building your relationship when you return home.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Catherine TYRO.
And we've been talking about breaking the cycles of incarceration and what it takes to get through all these phases to get you to a place of where you're not only successful, but you're thriving.
So there's 5 phases once you're incarcerated that are just natural phases that you go through in your incarceration. And so we've talked about all 5 of those phases that naturally occur from
shock, from denial, from anger,
to grief, to acceptance, which then leads us to a point where we have to make a decision. And this decision point will determine whether or not you repeat that cycle. And so that's your recidivism, where you just remain complacent after acceptance. I accept this. There's nothing I can do about it. So I'm just going to step off my time, go home. You're going to end up in the same circumstance. You're going to go through the cycle again and again.
You know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? And gentlemen, this is not easy. This is when you come to this place of a crossroad where you're either going to become a victim of your own circumstances or a victor because you make a conscious decision that I'm going to become better. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to a place where I can be healthy and those around me I can help become healthy and I can help my family build a new legacy, right? I mean, this is hard work. This is not easy.
It's the dividends or the reward or the return on that investment is huge. So when we talk about moving from acceptance, you know, while Ron was going through and while you're going through all of those phases on the inside, remember your family is going through those same phases. And so the point of acceptance for me and the family out here was really getting beyond the place where we were just like waiting for Ron to come home.
You were just waiting for me?
I know. And every time I say that, like I envision this, you know, I'm just sitting by my phone waiting for my man to come home. I'm just waiting for my man to come home.
Oh, I love that.
Which is completely unrealistic because that cannot happen. And I remember the point for me where I really realized I could not just sit there and wait for Ron to come home. That it was doing me an injustice, my children, and even Ron an injustice. And so the mother of one of my friends actually challenged me one day. She says, so what are you doing while Ron's in prison? And I said, well, I'm fighting really hard to get him home. And she said, well, what else are you doing? I said, well, I'm just, you know, I can't wait for him to come home because once he comes home, we'll be able to do this and that, and I'll go back to school. And she says, well, what a tragedy. And I was like, what do you mean? And she says that you're just sitting and putting your life on hold, waiting for Ron to come home because you're not building anything for him to come home to, and you're wasting your life. And I was so struck by that. I mean, it was like a wake-up call for me. But I'm so grateful that she told me the truth because it moved me out of the place of grief and complacency into a place of acceptance and then a decision to make change. And so now as I move into what we call the TYRO theory of change, and because the next 5 that we're going to focus on are the phases that you must go through in order to become successful in making this an event and not a lifestyle. And so the first of those is recognize. But let's really quick go through all 5 of those.
Well, the first one, you already mentioned the first one, which is recognize. And the second one is rebuild. And the third one is renew. And then fourth one is reinvent. And the fifth one is reinvest.
And so today we're really focusing in on the first one, which is recognize. And the thing that I like about recognize is really you can swap out that word recognize for responsibility. because it really, you choose to take responsibility for your part in your own life story. And so for me, on the outside, I was, it was everybody else's fault, from society to the people involved in Ron's case to Ron. It was everybody else, but not mine. And when I got to the place of acceptance and then the choice that I wanted to do something better, to make change, the first thing I had to hit was this really difficult hurdle called personal responsibility, and recognize the part that I had played in this movie or this play of my life that had landed me in this scene. And in order to really become whole and better, I had to say, okay, you know what? There were choices I was making. It wasn't just because Ron was getting high and partying. I'm hosting parties at our house too. It wasn't just because Ron was drinking. I'm drinking too. And so all of the circumstances in our life that I willingly played a part in landed us here. And now that I can recognize the truth of what happened, now I can take responsibility and I can begin to make better choices, because I recognize that this choice produced this result. So now I know if I make this choice that it's going to produce this result.
I want to add also with what you're saying about responsibility. Responsibility is really able to respond. Able to respond to what? To your story. Able to take responsibility or respond to your own actions, to what causes things to happen in your life. Nothing happens to our lives without us creating it or calling it forth. I really believe that. We're not in prison by accident, right? It just didn't happen. I made conscious choices, whether I was conscious or not, but the consequences were coming and are going to come nonetheless, no matter what I decide to do, whether they're positive or negative. And so I have to become able to respond. In my circumstances, I'm in prison, and now I recognize that I'm here, and now I got to own my story, share my story, see it for really what it is, and try not to, we're talking about something that is unadulterated. It's what it is, and I'm going to put it out there. This is my story, and I own it.
That's right. And in owning it, you're actually able to sit it down and move beyond it. Because if we don't recognize it for what it is, then we end up taking part of it with us forward into the future. If you recognize it for what it really is and what created this event in your life, you can look at it, you recognize it, now you know what not to do, because now you're awake and you're seeing it for what it really is. You know what leads you to that place, and you can avoid it like the plague. And so the very first part of wholeness and healing and reconciliation is that recognition.
Recognition. So when we come back, we're going to talk about what our kids have to go through when they come to this place of called recognition or recognizing, because this is going to be a challenge depending on how old your children are when they come to this place. What is your role? How can you help them own this story?
So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout,
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Cathy TYRO. And today we're talking about the cycle of incarceration, breaking that cycle, and specifically focused on the last phase of the natural cycle, which is acceptance, and then the point of decision that moves you into, if you decide to make a change, the first phase of true change, and that's recognize.
Right now we want to talk about our kids. We've talked about me going in there, recognizing where I'm at, why I got there, how I got there. Cathy talking about when she recognized where she was at, how to get past that, and what to do, owning her own story and so forth. But now this is a tough one. We want to talk about our kids. Because our kids are innocent, but this is part of their story now. And how do you help your children navigate and grow by owning this story, because this is their story by no fault of their own?
So as I began on the outside while Ron was still in prison to recognize my part in the story, the first thing that I did, Ron had already apologized to the boys, then I apologized for not building the life that they were entitled to, for not making choices that put them in the best possible position for success. But I also, at that same time, I made a commitment that from this point forward, everything I did, I was going to weigh out whether or not this was going to put my children in the best place possible for success in their own life. And as I began to do that, it began to create a safety around them so that even though that they were a place of acceptance that this was our life and that they were recognizing, wow, my family has a lot of hardship, and from their vantage point, their recognition is, now, how am I going to tell my story? And this usually happens, again, from the 10 on up age, where they begin to realize that they have to begin making choices that keep them in a place of safety and health and joy.
Statistically speaking, our children should be on drugs, divorced, even dead or incarcerated, all these things, but they're not.
Right.
And it took a lot of hard work for me as a father to instill in them the principles of goodness and greatness in them, just on visits or in phone calls and letters. Because as they come to a place of recognizing, my dad's in prison, my dad's got a label that nobody wants, and society or even their own peers, they have no mercy. They're going to dish it out to them as hard as they can, not understanding that, they're even creating or causing damage to them. And so it's our job as parents and our jobs as dads to help combat that situation, Dad, because society has no room for them because of your choices that you made. Just like society has no room for us. By no default of their own, they're living with the label too. The children of an ex-felon, the child of an incarcerated parent. And I'll tell you, watching my sons grow up and taking the hits that they had to take, from the neighbor kids, and even from other parents and organizations and other groups that they've been a part of, and just having to overcome and face it with their head up and having to deal with their own mind battles. I remember once Blake was talking, and he was actually speaking in a penitentiary, and he talked about how he had to overcome the thoughts of suicide. How he wanted to kill himself every day, but he made a conscious decision that I'm not going to hurt myself or anyone today.
Now, the important point there, is that he was filled and instilled with and surrounded with the support that he needed so that he had a foundation to tell himself, this is the wrong choice. This is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, but I know this is not what I should do. And so that is so important, because if young people don't have the positive messages around them, then they succumb to that. You know what? I feel angry. I want to hit somebody. I'm going to hit them. I feel angry. I want to hurt myself. I'm going to hurt myself. And so it's not that it's going to take away the pain. And we have to understand that. Providing a healthy environment for our children doesn't erase the pain. What it does is it gives them the tools to be able to manage it and cause them to have an expression that is healthy in spite of all the pain and the anguish inside.
So they got to come to a place of recognizing, wow, this is my story, but I'm not writing it.
Right.
Our children didn't write this story. They're just characters we're the directors, and we're writing this story, and they're a person or they're playing a part. But they got to come to a place too where they say, okay, when do I become the director of this play that I didn't write? And we have to help them with the skills to navigate and the tools to navigate before they become bitter and angry and start to resent society for growing up, if they are growing up without a dad.
Now, it's really important to also recognize that this cycle of healing, when we talked about those 5 things, the recognize, rebuild, renew, reinvent, and reinvest, you're going to go through and through that cycle through your entire life. And that's just part of being a successful, healthy adult, successful in relationships, successful in being who you are, is that life is a continuous improvement plan. And so as you continue, each time you recycle through that cycle, then you are healed more and more and more. So just because you've gone through it once doesn't mean that you're done. It's not a period at the end of that.
That's right.
And so as you navigate home, you're going to experience this cycle again, because you're going to be exposed to and begin to experience things in a different way.
So breaking this cycle of incarceration, it is paramount that you understand the cycles that you're going to go through and understand that it's not over when you go through them once. Because as Cathy said, this is a continuous improvement plan. But so when we come back, we want to give you a couple more tips before we close out. So stay tuned.
Completion of TYRO Dads is just the beginning of the opportunities available to you. As a TYRO Dad, you will be eligible to participate in workforce strengthening services to help prepare you for employment and open the doors to economic stability for you and your family. The Workforce Strengthening Program starts with job ethics training. Once completed, you may be eligible to receive training to acquire your commercial driver's license while still inside prison. If getting a CDL is not for you, then there is also a welding training program you may be eligible for. As more programs are being added, there really is something for almost everyone.
If you think you have what it takes to be a TYRO or just want to know more, contact your local Ridge Project facilitator or your caseworker.
Welcome back to TYRO TV. I'm Ron TYRO.
And I'm Cathy TYRO. And we've been talking about breaking the cycle of incarceration. And specifically, each phase that we have to go through. We have the 5 phases of incarceration, the cycle of incarceration, and then the decision point that moves us into the 5 phases of actually overcoming incarceration. And so today we've been talking about acceptance, the point of change, and recognize.
And understand this, guys, that this is not easy. This is difficult and this is challenging, but you got to get to the place of where you have a courageous conversation with yourself. In order to get past recognition, in order to get past this phase and go on to become more successful and healed in this process, you got to own your story. You got to take responsibility or able to respond to the consequences and the choices that you made, right? So you can bring healing to all those around you.
And here, let us leave you with 3 key things you can do for your children to ensure their success. First, make sure that they have an expanded emotional vocabulary. So not just that I'm angry, not just that I'm happy, but teach them, are you frustrated? Are you hurt? Are you confused? Ask them those questions. Give them those words and help define those words so that they can put their emotions in the proper place.
And the next thing that we could leave with you is also tell them the truth. You know, age appropriate now, but you got to be honest with them, and you got to find a way that as you're honest with them, that they're able to be honest with you. Because as you're beginning to become set free, it will help them to express to themselves, help set them free, because they're going through all types of mind battles, and they don't know where to go, and you want them to be able to come to you.
That's right. So you can create peace and stability and safety for them. Really quick, let me give you an example of that. Our daughter's 12, and so we recently had a conversation with her about, you know, as people know that our story, that I used to be on welfare and Ron used to be in prison, that sometimes they begin to distance themselves and they pull their children back too from friendships with her. And so she just looked at it and she says, well, Mom, isn't that prejudice? Because they don't even know us. They don't even know you. And I said, you know, Bria, it is prejudice, but they don't know us. They don't understand. They don't know anything about our story. And so what we have to do is we just have to continue to do good and be good and live by example so that then they'll watch our lives and hopefully it will change their heart.
And that's a hard place to be for any family, you know, because you know there's some really good kids out there that are good for your kids. So dads, it's our job to help choose the friends that we want our children to be with, the people that we want them to grow up alongside, you know, and these are some really good kids that their parents may say, no, you can't be with them because, and it's sad, it's hard, but it's a reality. And we recognize it and we own it. We take responsibility for it. And we want to help our children navigate through that.
So as you think about the cycles and breaking those cycles, remember that your job is to lead. And so sometimes that means as you come home and you navigate home, making that connection with parents, that you are like, wow, I really want my child to be friends with these children because this is what I want supported. Then build that relationship and be truthful. Share your story in a way that other people can hear your story before somebody else does. And so if that's one thing we can leave with you today, that's what we want to leave with you.
So thank you for watching TYRO TV, and thank you for letting us be part of your journey. Until next time,
we are rooting for you.
I am a man of honor.
I am a man of integrity.
I am a man of faith. I am the antidote.
I am a man of discipline. I am a leader.
I am strong.
I am a man worth following.
I am a TYRO.